Hi everyone, my name is Giovanna Proença, and today we're going to talk about problem set 4, Frank, Ian, and Glen'S letter of CS50 Introduction to Programming with Python. If you have any programming question or if you would like to know more about the career, schedule a free meeting with us, the link's in the description. And we would like to emphasize that this video solution is made for those who have already completed the assignment and want to have an alternative view about the problem. We totally discourage plagiarism. So in this problem here, we're going to do the following. We're going to implement a program that expects 0 or 2 command line arguments, 0 if the user would like to output text in a random font, or 2 if the user would like to output text in a specific font, in which case the first of the two should be -f or -- font, and the second of the two command line should be the name of the font. Prompt the user for a string of text and output that text in the desired font. So basically here, what are we gonna do? We're going to run our code here, like we can see, python figlet.py, and we're gonna ask the user for a message, for example, hello world. In this case, the user did not prompt in the command line the specific font that he wants to see in the output. So here, the code choose a random font, and we have here hello world, this case, all right? We have another case where we're doing this in here. We're doing python figlet.py, and we're adding more arguments in our command line, the -f and the slant font. So then we're gonna ask the user for an input, hello world, and we're gonna output this hello world message in this font that the user asked, all right? So this is kind of the goal of this problem. So here, let's start our code step by step. We have a lot of things to do, so don't worry, we're going to see everything we have to do. Let's start understanding this part of command line arguments. Okay, so how can we get these command line arguments in our terminal and use in our code? So let's see this explanation about the sys module. The sys library in Python provides various functions and variables that are used to manipulate different parts of the Python runtime environment, specifically command line arguments. Command line arguments are those which are passed during the calling of the program, along with the calling statement. To achieve this using the sys module provides a variable called sys.argv. Let's see this example. Let's suppose we have a file called test.py that looks like this. Import sys, so we're importing the module sys, and we're doing print sys.argv. If we run test.py in terminal doing python test.py red, green, and blue, we can see that sys.argv is a list of command line arguments. So we're printing the list test.py, the first element, the second element red, the third element green, and the fourth element blue. If we try to print the length of sys.argv like the code above, so we're using the same file test.py, import sys, and we're doing print length sys.argv. If we run the terminal again doing python test.py red, green, and blue, we will see that length sys.argv provides the number of command line arguments, so we print the number 4. Finally, if we want to print the first element of our sys.argv list, we can do, again, the same file test.py, we're importing the sys module, and we're printing sys.argv on position 0. If we run test.py in terminal doing again python test.py red, green, blue, then we check that sys.argv0 is the name of the current Python script, which is test.py. So now that we saw how the sys module works, let's start implementing this in here, all right? So we know that if we want to use, by the animation, we know that if we want to use the sys module, we have to import, all right? So we're going to do import sys. Okay, and let's do this first checking here. Let's check if we have 0 command line arguments or if we have 2. Okay, so if we have more arguments than the name of the file, or if we have no arguments more than the name of the file. Okay, so how can we do this? We can check the length of argv. So we're gonna do if length of sys.argv. So this way we're getting the list of the arguments we're passing in the command line when we're running the code. Okay, so if the length sys.argv is equals to 1, what this means here in our code. 0 if the user would like to output text in a random font. So to know if we're gonna use a random font or not, I'm gonna create here a variable called isRandom font. For example, isRandom font, and I'm gonna set this to true. Okay, I'm gonna use this variable so we can keep track if we're gonna get a random font or not. Okay, so here I'm setting this to true, this variable. Then we have to check the second bullet point. True if the user would like to output text in a specific font. So let's check here. So elif length of sys.argv, it's equals to 3, all right? And why 3 here? Because remember that if we run here python figlet.py, this figlet.py is the first argument, all right? So if we're going to have the name of the font, we're gonna have 1, 2, 3 elements in our argv list, all right? The second element is this -f or -font, like it's saying here, and the third element is the name of the font, okay? So we want to check if we have 3 elements in our argv list. If we have this, we know that our isFont is going to be false. So isRandom font is equals to false because we're gonna receive the random font, all right? Now we have to check if the second element of our argv, actually before let's run this way, and then we're going to see, I'm gonna print here is random font. Let's see if it's working so far. Okay, let's run. So if I run here figlet.py, cd pset4 figlet, and if we run here python figlet.py, we just have here one argument in our command line, so that's why our isRandom is true, because we're entering in this if condition here. If I add more things in here, for example -f is length, now it's printing false because we have 3 elements here in our command line. All right, so far so good. So let's continue. This is not enough in our case. We have to check if the second element is -f or --font. All right, so we have to check if it's -f or --font. So here in our elif, I'm gonna do and, so we're adding one more condition that needs to be true so we can continue our code. And the sys.argv on position 1, remember position 0 is the name of the file like we saw in the animation. Position 1 is this part here and position 2 is this part here. So if sys.argv is equals to -f, or, and I'm gonna put in a parenthesis here so we put the idea, or sys.argv on position 1 is equals to --font. Okay, so we need this to be sure that we're receiving the correct command line arguments. All right, so we're doing this checking. Okay, so let's test the else case. Right now I'm not gonna do the else case, let's do the following. So if I run here figlet-f and the name of the font, now it's returning us false. Okay, now it's giving this correct. Now that we are checking this, we have to take a look at this part. If the user provides 2 command line arguments and the first is not -f or --font, or the second is not the name of a font, the program should exit via sys.exit with an error message. So here we're gonna do an else case. So if this condition doesn't work, we're gonna use the sys.exit, that is a function that will get us out of the code. We're going to stop our code in this particular part. So if we don't have the correct command line arguments, we're going to exit our code and we're not gonna see the other parts of our program here. Okay, and one thing that is important to use is here the number 1, okay? They ask us to use this number 1. So let's run again and test. If I run python figlet.py with anything, we're going to print true. If I run again python figlet.py -f is length, it's going to return us false. But what if I put here something else like red? We're exiting the code because we're not giving the correct second element in our command line. All right, so this is really important. So this is basically it. We are taking a look at this first bullet point here. Okay, now let's do the following. Now we have to prompt the user for a string of the text. Okay, So after we finish this part, we have to ask the user for a message. So I'm gonna create here a variable called msg, and I'm gonna ask the user for a message. If we take a look in here, we're using the word input colon, right? And we're going to store this in our msg function. So here, input colon. All right, now things are starting to be interesting. We're going to output the text in the desired font. So to do this, let's understand how can we import modules. I know we already did this for the sys module, but now let's understand how we import this and then we can go on. If you want to use a set of functions in your application from a library, you can use the import keyword. This way you can get access to code from another library and use it in your own file. For example, if we want to print the correct value of pi, we can import the math library into our code. Then we can use the pi method of the math library to print it. So we're going to do import math in the first line, and in the second line we're going to do print math.pi, and then the output will be the number of pi, 3.15, so on and so forth. So now that we understood how can we import modules or libraries from other parts and use in our code, let's start doing this in here. So if we take a look at the hints, we're going to use this py-figlet module, all right? So remember, the first thing we have to do is to install this module in our code, okay? In our terminal. So we're gonna do pip install py-figlet. So pip install py-figlet.